Hey, hi there.
My name is Joanna.
Hi.
I'm working here as a production assistant.
Cool.
Just want to go check your sound to see
It's
if it works.
sitting in front of her. Watch out.
Actually, I wonder, because of my hair situation, if a lab would be easier, because it's like I have such a high collar.
It's easy enough to do. We can do that.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
I'd suggest putting it as centered as you can.
Yeah.
If you need some help, let us know. Or having these people turning their heads and it's kind of not working as well.
Yeah, I have a pretty loud speaker.
Good. It's mostly for the online crew. I mean, I'm sure you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
fill the room with your
Yeah.
voice, but the online people won't pick that up.
Got it. And I don't see the online people.
No, you do not.
Okay.
Yeah, they are theoretically looking at you through that camera, and the stream is live.
Okay, great.
So, and it seems to be working at the moment. It's right there. This one.
I have a tendency to flip my hair and do annoying things that
Oh, I
was
understand.
like, that's not going to work.
There you go.
Facing down.
That looks like a good position for it. That should be it. Okay, let's check you out. Power. Say something for our audience.
Thanks, y'all, for coming out. So nice to be here with the wise beings who sit with Chandra. That's amazing. You all are so fortunate. Chandra's such a dear friend and Dharma sister. And I remembered today why I don't come here more often. So I live in San Francisco. I left at 5. I just got here. And, sometimes you got to go through it. There was a semi that was stuck in the middle of the bridge. What can you do? Can you guys hear me?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, great.
You're basically it. You asked us not to lock the door, so
Yeah, they are welcome. And these are okay. The lights will be fine till we're done here.
why don't we pull up a little more lighting for you?
Okay, cool.
How's that, folks? Okay. Necessary, feel free to show us up.
So I love this book. Chandra and I taught it together, I think back in 2020 or maybe 2021 when we used to share an evening together in the city. And then I was on month-long retreat, February at Spirit Rock. And this was, you're not supposed to bring books, but I'm not a rule follower in that way. And this one being non-linear feels like a good, it's not like I'm escaping. And as you all know, going through this book, these little gems of wisdom are so beautiful. And I think even though I brought the whole book, I only read about 4 passages over and over and over about the natural state of mind. And it's just so cool how just these simple phrasings and words, when you've kind of cleared out the dust of the everyday, they can just land in this perfect catalytic way. So, but it's funny because, these words meant so much to me. I read them every day, a couple times a day for courage and integrity. And then I was looking through the book last night and I was like, I don't remember which one it was. These all sound the same. So they're all quite beautiful. And I feel so lucky because you all might not know this, but you're now on this chapter 6, which is taking refuge. Such a beautiful topic. And even though the last chapter, which is giving up the causes of suffering, or I like to call it heartbreak with samsara, that was a 20-page chapter. This is a almost 2-page chapter. It's like, and we're done. Taking refuge, no big deal. I was like, did some pages fall out? Because this book's kind of well worn. But no, that's it. Which I think actually, it speaks a little to the kind of the simple elegance of taking refuge. And I want us tonight to have a little time to practice and, experience the refuge of our practice. And then reflect a little bit on what is it we are actually seeking refuge from? What do we need refuge from? And what does refuge actually feel like? How is it experienced in the body? How is it experienced in our relationships with ourselves, with this world? It's a really beautiful topic, and often it goes with the precepts. So I think of refuge, and then I think of all these things I can't do. And so it was nice to focus just on refuge, which actually, just as a word, has such a poetic quality. Chandra, who's such a beautiful translator, she loves the words and their weight, and often the English translations fall so short. But refuge, like that feels like the tranquility, like the protection and the shelter that it is pointing to when we take refuge. I'm Eve, by the way. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from San Francisco and I live in San Francisco. And I feel really fortunate to have bumped into the spiritual path. And like Chandra, my background has been in Tibetan Buddhism, and really feel grateful to have shared a couple teachers with Chandra. She might have mentioned Alan Wallace, and I currently also sit with Jennifer Wellwood. And both of these teachers, interestingly, they have a very clear, deep stream in their teaching. So there's not a lot of the esoteric in those teachings, at least what I've received from them. And there's a heavy focus on how do we kind of polish the inner lens to see ourselves more clearly? How do we stabilize and train the mind? Steadiness, shamatha. And then from that, we can just feel what's naturally already there, which is this outrageous love in the heart. I've been teaching the last 5 or 6 months on the book, The Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. Some of you may know that text. And it's such an inspiring book. It describes the path that we are on when we take this truly crazy, outrageous vow to keep our heart open with the world on fire. And this is an 8th century text. And I know all of us know that this world has been on fire for a long time. And those ancient teachings, a lot of them are mirrored in this book. And Shantideva, who's one of the authors who's quoted frequently by Matthew Ricard in this book, he really has this, this simple way of understanding bodhicitta and understanding that, compassionate warrior, the bodhisattva. And it's, if we can experience right here that indelible goodness, that radiant glimmer of the goodness that we already are, then the only thing we want is everybody else to experience it too. Which is like, that really works for me. Like, I want to alleviate suffering for the sake of all beings because there's so much suffering. But when I go at it that way, I can sometimes feel heavy. But that going at it through just like the exquisite tenderness and beauty of this heart, this life, this experience, and then being like, when you like hear that song, it's like the best song, it's like the song of the summer, and you like send it to all your friends. Like, everybody's got to hear this. We got to be on it. It's that energy. And so, I want us to, consider and cultivate and inspire bodhicitta in a practice together. And one more thing I'll say is I really love weaving the contemporary wisdom traditions that, do this introspection, do this trying to understand the heart, mind, and body. And I did like way too much school studying psychology of emotion, specifically in burnout. And I like the way that those lenses and frames can kind of help with our contemporary way of seeing and relating to the world. So I'll bring some of those ideas and themes in. And in the 15 years I've been teaching the blend of these two, sometimes they like rub up in a weird way, like Buddhism and contemporary neuroscience and social psychology. And sometimes that like rub or bump is a really good thing to look at. So I just invite you all, like if there's words or terms or ideas, just to let them have that like, wait, I'm not sure, and then explore, and then please, like, let's discuss it and talk about it. Especially in the context, we'll be talking a lot about just to get you excited. Fear and doubt. Yay. Anybody experience fear and doubt? Yeah. I love teaching on emotions. If I was allowed, I would teach on, shame and contempt all the time, but hard to get people in the room for that. Fear and doubt is just such rich territory to understand ourselves and to kind of get motivated towards these practices that help us truly kind of pull out the weeds of our delusion, because living with them is so unpleasant. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's enough of a preamble. So I know Chandra does all sorts of really cool stuff like chanting and dancing and moving. I'm sorry, we're just going to sit and talk tonight. And let's see how that goes. I think there's a lot of good with the sitting and talking, and I'll save for Chandra that magic weaving. So let's give ourselves a chance whether seated on the floor or in a chair. Let's invite that nice uprightness of the spine, almost a suppleness. Whenever I see a stalk of a lily, a kind of proud, upright stance, that position, I imagine that like our practice and our head like the flower, that dignity and the uprightness of being fully supported by the spine, that ease and beauty and blossoming. So much of our day we're communicating through the 42 muscle groups of the face. We're trying to hide certain things, express others. Let's give our face a rest, melt and melt, softening through the eyes and around eyes. Softening the cheekbones and the jaw. Feel as though the face was as calm, as easeful as that of a sleeping baby. Invite just the slightest tucking of the chin that further allows the spine to feel that uprightness, that connection to the sky, to the heavens, to the galaxies. Whether eyes are open or closed, again, softening, softening, softening. And we'll settle the body into its natural state by simply noticing sensations throughout the body, as though our entire perceptual capacity was just sensations in the body. We couldn't hear sound, couldn't see light, and saturating our entire body with attention and awareness. And of course, we'll get carried away. Thoughts, distractions, fantasies, imaginings. And simply relax and release and return to the settling of the body in a natural state. And while there is this beautiful undulation of movement in the body, both the energies and sensations, there's also a quality of stillness to the body in practice. Sometimes described as a profound existential relaxation of body. Not the relaxation of sleep and dullness, but just the deepest ease. Nowhere to be, nothing to do, right here. So feeling, sensing, and imagining this fullness of the body from within the body. While the body, of course, has its aches and its injuries and all the things, it is indeed our most intimate experience of ourselves, and is indeed the refuge of our spirit, of the heart of consciousness. A couple more moments, settling the body in its natural state of stillness and stability. The settling is actually often experienced as vibrancy. And to help settle the inner speech, we now pick up a focus on the breath. Breathing in, feeling, knowing, sensing the breath as we breathe in. Breathing out, continuing that feeling, sensing, and knowing of the breathing. Feeling the breath breathe the body with just enough curiosity and attention to keep us tethered on the breath, but not thinking or conceptualizing the breath. Just feeling and sensing the elegance, the gentleness, and how this can help us settle the inner speech and narration into a quality of silence. Doesn't matter how many times you have to regather the attention after it has been carried away. However, the quality of regathering, the gentleness, and then actually being present for the reunion, whatever it is that carried us away, has its own beautiful effervescent energy. Bringing back that energy to our practice, reconnecting to the sense of being the breath. with some sense of the body settled into a natural state of stillness, stability, and the mind can now find itself also settling. A sense of almost leaning back in the mind and settling to its natural state of warmth and openness. Body existentially relaxed, and speech settled through following and anchoring with the breath. And the vast, spacious warmth of mind, of awareness permeating all the space around us, within us, above, below, side to side, in front and behind. This quality of the mind that is naturally warm is the quality of bodhicitta that infuses all of awareness. And so, without needing to contract back into one sense of self or body or being, invite, arouse this bodhicitta, this heart that so longs and yearns for awakening, so longs to share the fruits of awakening with all beings. So feel, sense, or imagine whatever quality of radiance or goodness, our intrinsic Buddha nature that's always already here. Without trying to force or conjure anything, is there something that feels good or even just okay? Just being here in the body, in the breath, in the mind that is settled. not denying the pain or difficulties in our own life, the life of those we love and the world, but by harvesting this feeling of goodness, okayness, indelible light and love. We find that fuel for then wanting the same for all beings. Bodhicitta can feel like a prayer, like a longing, like a song. And whether it feels flickering or dim, radiating out of us like the sun, you simply make more space, soften and open. If attention feels distracted or dull, or we feel diffuse, we can just come back to the breath, finding the vibrancy through the inhale, the ease through the exhale. When the mind gets caught up in craving or aversion, wanting, not wanting, stories and fantasies, just very gently and with so much generosity, come back to this refuge of practice. Re-entering the present moment, fully inhabiting the breath. And if it's available, feeling that radiance of bodhicitta, infusing spacious, clear, uncontrived awareness. Taking a moment to feel the refuge of Sangha here and online, beings here tonight or beings here coming and going. Just that sense of shared purpose and values, travelers on the path. Even here with our own experience of spacious awareness, breath and body, our practice is enriched by the refuge of Sangha. And feel, sense, or imagine the refuge of this Dharma, these teachings and practices which have been shared and passed down, explored, extended, generation after generation, holding the body, hearts, and minds of so many beings, and here for us. Whether the Dharma feels like a living stream in your life or something of curiosity, If you can sense that support, that trustworthiness of these teachings, and allow them to feel like that shelter, that refuge, somewhere we can rest the heart. Very gently coming back to just the simple focus on breath. Breathing in, feeling the whole body, breathing in, breathing out, feeling the whole body, breathing out. Thank you for your practice. It's almost like I didn't drive over the bridge. It's just amazing, at least for me, that coming home. Very sweet. So, as I mentioned, Chandra and I used to teach together over in the city. And one of the things we do there is kind of every night there's a bit of a different constellation of beings who are here. So every night we get an opportunity to recreate Sangha, right? So tonight, my invitation for all of us is to use our practice not just when we're seated with our eyes closed, but also with each other in creating the kind of community and connection that we want to be living. And a big piece of that is clear seeing or pure vision. So around this room and for friends online, seeing each other as little Buddhas in the making, seeing our goodness, seeing the light, and also recognizing there's just no way we can really understand other beings from what we see or sense. And so it's so important for us as much as possible to really engage in compassionate listening, compassionate speaking. And this one's maybe the hardest, even like compassionate in our mind stream and the unspoken thoughts. For many of us, it's hardest to have this kind of ethic of non-harming body, speech, and mind when it's directed towards ourselves. but I invite us all to be just radically loving and compassionate in mind and thought and speech with one another tonight. What do you think? Good plan, right? Okay, we'll do our best. So I'd love to hear if there's any questions or reflections on that practice. Anything you noticed? And then I guess, do you guys, for online folks, do you repeat the question so folks hear? Is that how you do it? There's a handheld mic. Whatever. If not, I can totally repeat it. Anybody have a question or a reflection? Anything you're curious about? Anything you're like too embarrassed to ask Chandra because she's like kind of up here, but you can just ask me. Totally answer it. Okay. Practice question or practice reflection. I really encourage the reflection because we don't learn that well just from doing. We learn from reflecting on doing. And with meditation, it's like we do it, we're so in it, and then it's like next thing. But taking that beat or that moment to reflect and be curious about like what was that? What was happening? This really helps cultivate that kind of, I was saying, the polishing of the inner lens, or what's called first person introspection, the contemplative science of our own mind. Any reports from the contemplative science of your mind? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful meditation for me. And I felt very emotional. I just found out a few hours ago that someone I used to live with, like an acquaintance, friend, had passed away. One of our strongest connections was meditation. We have like full conversation about it and ask each other things like, how's your sadhana, and things like that, or like, how's it going? So it felt like I was connecting to him in a way. And it's still very fresh and new and kind of confusing and like bewildering to like kind of have that information, but in the meditation I felt a lot of love and a sense of like connection to that person.
Thank you for sharing that and letting us hold that with you. That's it. The loss, the heartbreak, it's kind of one of the things we spend so much momentum and energy trying to get away from. And it's so poignant and powerful when we can't, like it's right there. And beautiful that did create the sense of deep connection, likely with yourself, and then possibly with this being in ways unknown and known. Yeah, I often say that I actually think sadness, when it doesn't meet protest, right? So just the feelings of sorrow, not anguish. So anguish is the protesting form of sadness. Some of the kind of deepest ways we can experience the body, heart, and mind. Like it's a very grounding place. Sometimes that heartbreak can really, kind of cut through the momentum of planning and doing and you're just right here with it. So glad you're here with us. Thank you. Anybody else? Reflection, question? Yes. You can use the mic. I can't manage to walk. Oh, I have a shoulder energy, but it somehow prevents me from walking.
Testing. Wow.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. On the subject of loss, similarly, been dealing with loss in my life. And sitting in meditation here, I've been playing with the experience of just being with that suffering and being in contact with it. And as I was here, it was really interesting, kind of with some of your preamble, just what it felt like to be in the ground of being. And it was just like, if this is like this is all I have to do, just breathe. Like this is enough, like a feeling of that.
Yeah.
And that was really freeing. I kept coming back of just like what a sense of freedom to be able to be in this body and be awareness, and for that to be enough. And then, of course, it would come in and out, but also a sense of, I think I was having trouble connecting fully with bodhicitta and the heart space. And for a moment, I sort of like, okay, maybe that's just not what we're doing today. I wasn't able to or something. And then I kind of followed my awareness into the heart. And then there it was. And it was just so interesting to feel that difference. And that it was just this warmth that was like, I've been waiting, like, and that was kind of there. So thanks for encouraging us to share too, because I typically don't, but I'm trying to do that more. So,
Thank you. It's beautiful to hear. Yeah, both that kind of inner wisdom of the titrating, right? So like letting the contact happen with loss as it will, and also finding that refuge, being, this is it, this is enough. And I love the way you describe bodhicitta. I just love that. I found on this month-long retreat, it's really hard for me in this mind and this lifetime. There was a lot of activity and wildness, repetition going on, maybe purification. And every morning I'd hike to the top of the mountain, Spirit Rock. I don't know if you all have been there, but to watch the sunrise. And I couldn't like force bodhicitta, but something about being up there in real like supplication. Like I've never really had such a practice of prayer, but just like help. And bodhicitta would like stream through, without, because I was trying to do it in a formal way. It wasn't there. And then that ability to feel bodhicitta permeating awareness, just everywhere. That kind of uncontrived quality of it. Yeah, it's such a treat. And it is, right? There is, when we talk about refuge, really quickly we get to trust. It's like, well, what are we trusting? It's that. We don't need to force it. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else? Reflection or question?
I had an interesting experience where usually when I sit, there's a lot of feeling and emotion and there's a lot of sensation. And you mentioned burnout and kind of you've been looking at burnout, and I've been feeling very burned out. And it was interesting to feel that there was kind of a sensation of numbness and overdraw inside when I sat with that. And there was I almost had kind of a panic feeling of like, where is everything? Like, and then there was sort of a realization, well, this is an experience in and of itself. And just being here and resting in the experience of kind of emptiness actually felt like the healing place to be. So I think, it's a different experience than I've often had, but I think just returning to that ground and acknowledging that experience felt helpful.
Beautiful. Isn't it amazing when people share about their practice? It's yeah, there's like these stages or phases of burnout, right? There's our emotional exhaustion, which just is every day kind of amplifying and suppressing our experience to be in contact with others. Whether, I don't know if I mentioned, but I was a emergency room social worker at SF General for many years, and it's kind of inspired my interest in burnout, not because I was burned out, but because I wasn't burned out. I was like, well, there's got to be more than just stress, because this place is stressful. But that level of emotional exhaustion, that's kind of one layer. Then there's a layer of like, I can't do what's expected of me, like low efficacy, or like what I do doesn't matter. And that's this is a very like Western or modern psychological term, because like it's all doing and efficacy oriented, as much of culture emphasizes we need to do. And then there's the layer sometimes called cynicism or depersonalization. And I kind of think of it like a callus on the heart. And like calluses, I have a bunch of calluses, they're very protective, right? So we can't feel, but it's protecting what's sensitive underneath it. And so I love that you could see like, well, this is what's here, so let's work with this. And it's also good to feel like this is not right. Like this is not how I want to be living, because really cynicism, sometimes called cynicism, or that depersonalization, is a really strong suppression of our emotions as a protective mechanism. When we suppress what feels bad because we don't have a very articulated system, we're suppressing what feels good. It's all damped down together. So that's why it's not the most effective strategy over time. And then also, when we're in that, it's like hard to feel the meaning and purpose connection, because we've just kind of put it down. And it's really tricky. This is where the rubber really hits the road with like bodhicitta and then like working in dysfunctional systems. And you're like, and it's really tricky to keep the heart of compassion when we feel exhausted, low efficacy, and we're just like, well, fuck it. And I think I think we have to go all the way to the numb out and then like come back and then maybe like hurt a little too much with all the emotions and then come back. Like there's no way to just figure out how to be balanced in our compassion. However, it just needs to be infused with equanimity in like every moment, right? So when we care and when we have the caring, we're also seeing like, and this is all illusory phenomena, like empty of any inherent nature. It's a really weird mindset to be able to have that open heart without the collapse and overwhelm or the kind of dissociation, And then the middle zone, which is like blame and anger, which was not so cute, but it's, it's tricky. It's really tricky. So thanks for sharing that. I'm sure it's relatable. Yeah. And, I do think that from what I've seen in the research literature and my own studies is when there's that feeling there, to really reconnect to sense of meaning and purpose. Just little tiny, like meaning and purpose could be, I brought my lunch to work today and that makes me feel good. Because sometimes the meaning and purpose gets lost because our aspiration is a little too high, beautifully so, but so that like kind of getting over the hump. Thank you. Anybody else? Like, I make everybody nervous when I look at them. They're like, oh. Okay, going once, going twice. It's so funny to not see, like, at Dharma Collective, we see the people online. So I'm always like looking for the ether realm. Friends online, I'm with you in a different way. So this beautiful chapter. Wait, has Chandra talked about Mathieu Ricard at all? The author of this book? You guys are reading this book, am I right? Did I get the memo? Okay. Has she talked about him at all? A little bit. I love Matthew Ricard. Like truly, he's probably one of my top heroes in the world. And I've had the crazy good fortune to like know him for like the last 15 years. 25 years. I met him in 2000, and at this meeting of Mind and Life, this organization that brings together scientists and contemplatives. And he is, I take refuge in him because seeing and knowing how his path has created a being of such goodness is like, okay, right? And, his path, like he was it's so cool too, like the story of how he found the Dharma is he's French. My mom loved him. She's like, he's French, he's a monk, he's so charming. What more do you want? He's like very, such a sweet human. And he was studying biology or microbiology and then went to a photography exhibit. And it was all portraits, very close up, of different Tibetan teachers. And something like unbelievable happened when he saw the peace in the faces of these beings. And he had like a summer internship and he canceled it and went to Nepal to try to meet some of these teachers and just got totally turned out in the best way and was like, oh my God, and wanted to stay. But his teacher was like, go back and finish your PhD. Like, come on, you started this thing, do it. Finished PhD, came back a year and a half later, and he was 20 then. He's probably in his 80s now and has dedicated his life to the Dharma and to the practice and the preservation of Tibetan culture in general. He's a humanitarian and, makes these beautiful photographs and then sells them and donates everything back to the preservation of Tibetan culture and Tibetan Children's Village. And he's written this is like such a modest book. Usually his books are like this tall. He's such an extensive writer and he's translated many texts that were on the verge of being destroyed from monasteries in Eastern Tibet. And yeah, such a beautiful human. His book last year is Notebooks of a Wandering Monk. And it is about his life. And he's never shared memoirs before. And his teacher, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, is very well-known and beloved teacher, in these last centuries. And he literally slept at the feet of his teacher for 14 years, every night, and just was of service and was, just there. And he was, according to him, he was like a really stubborn, difficult person, Matthew, not the teacher. And it was so hard for him to humble himself in that way. And especially thinking about this chapter on refuge. Refuge is surrender. Refuge is, there is a place that I can go that's safe so I can let go of trying to control shit all the time. Just so grateful. And it's interesting what Matthew says is in the opening here. Oh my God, I'm in denial that I need glasses. He's talking about, of course, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, as we kind of covered in the meditation practice. And when we recognize that there is delusion and ignorance that's in the way of our happiness, usually because of some significant pain, and then we find the Buddha's path, it's like, well, how do we overcome that delusion and ignorance? And we have to, as Mathieu describes, we kind of have to rely on beings who've already done so and following the path that they have traced. So he says, this is the role of the three jewels in Buddhism. The Buddha, the awakened one who shows us how to get free from suffering. The Dharma, the path taught by the Buddha. And the Sangha, the community of those who follow that path. But, it's interesting in Vajrayana, and the spiritual teacher himself or herself or their self embodies the essence of the three jewels. Their mind is enlightenment, their words are the teaching, and the Dharma is their body or the community. And so this is the kind of first realm of refuge, is finding, the teachers our practice and each other as refuge. And, you know, that is hard to really trust. Like, we'd be like, no, cool, I love Sangha, I show up every Tuesday. But like, when push comes to shove, are we afraid to share? Are we afraid to really show up? Like, is there a real sense of trust, right? And same, like, blew my mind, like maybe 10 days into my month-long retreat. And I was like, oh, I don't actually trust the Dharma. I think I have to do it. Like, I think I have to be in control and make this happen. Like, I don't trust that I can let go into my practice. I'm trying to do it. And so it's really tricky, this refuge, like what it actually takes to trust in, you know, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And it's funny, you know, like you hear my reverence for Mathieu and His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche and Soknyi Rinpoche, like all these amazing teachers who I'm like, definitely, they got it. I see it. I want that. But then, you know, part of that lack of trust is, of course, self-doubt. Like, yeah, they got it, but like me, like I'm gonna have to like shortcut or fake it. Like, there's no way that I can make it the way these other folks make it. Like, look at that person, the way they sit all day. Like, they got it, not me, right? That, you know, funny, but that version of self-cherishing, which is persistent self-doubt. And, you know, self-cherishing, as many of you know, is our number one obstacle on the path. And definitely our number one obstacle in becoming bodhisattvas and having our awakened heart for all beings is we're kind of like so preoccupied with ourself, we can't break through. Yes.
When you go into that term more self-cherishing, it just feels
Yeah. It's funny. I don't assume folks know it, so I'm happy to unpack it. Yeah, it's. I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, "Nah, you don't know my mind. There's no cherishing here." You know, there's denigrating and criticism, but that cherishing thing, that's those other people. But self-cherishing encompasses all the activities where we make ourselves separate. It's this kind of fixation upon our separateness. Sometimes because we consider ourselves worse, sometimes we put ourselves above, but it's that inability to see and kind of break down the barriers between ourselves and others. Yeah. And it's, again, the funny side, like there's the grandiose side of self-cherishing, and then there's the deficiency side of self-cherishing. And then you can have both, right? There's a little mix and match, a little surf and turf there. It just like cracks me up because I'm like, and then, like I have grandiosity about my deficiency. I'm like, I always think I'm so bad. And then I like notice myself totally putting myself above someone else. I'm like, no, you got both sides. You got the whole deal. And, you know, speaking of beautiful teachers, this woman known as the Oracle, Chandra, who teaches alongside His Holiness the Dalai Lama and kind of acts as this muse. She has prophecies and visions, and go into that another time. But her teaching, you know, I saw her and I kind of expected her to like float off the ground and like give these prophecies. And I was like, and literally the entire teaching 3 days was cut through self-cherishing, connect with bodhicitta, cut through self-cherishing, connect to it. And I was like, oh, what about the visions? Tell me about the next phase of the Kali Yuga. Like, what's happening? Nope. And that cutting through self-cherishing, you know, every single part of this book is about it, whether it's Heartbreak with Samsara or your next chapter, which is 30 pages, is on altruistic love and compassion. You know, all these ingredients, they're helping us like kind of melt that sense of separateness, that sense of you know, being not part of, not connected to, not one with all things. It's very humbling. And I think in some ways, though you don't necessarily hear it talked about in this way, but that humility is like absolutely required for taking refuge. Because when we have humility, it's this recognition of something greater than us. And that, for those of us who are like independent, we do it ourselves, it's hard, the humility of needing help, needing refuge. And then some of us have like actually asked for help and it hasn't shown up or it's been harmful. And then we live in this world where there's so many things that don't deserve our trust. Simply, injustice, unfairness, senseless suffering. And so it can be very hard to take refuge. There's a vigilance that we feel we need, but the refuge is like, it's like this pure softness, this kind of like primordial softness. So that's, phase one of refuge is that Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I want to stay there for one moment before we go to the next phase. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Which one feels like the hardest to take refuge in? You're like, that's a reliable source for me. All three? None? They're all hard. Yeah. 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 I mean, I feel it though, like the taking of refuge. And, some folks here might have, taken formal refuge, right? This idea of when we kind of commit or tether our hearts to the path, we really commit to taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And that is why it's so helpful to see beings who exemplify these qualities, who can show us the way, and then have like these texts. And that's why the external manifestations are so helpful. Does anyone find any of these refuges like more appealing? I went for the what's hard. How about what's appealing? What feels trustworthy? The Buddha? Yeah. How come?
I guess it's like so undying, and there's not a lot of variables. It's always been something that I trusted.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, great. I really find, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but you read a Dharma book, maybe especially like your first couple Dharma books, and you're like, someone else thought this? You're like, no way. And I have found so much sense of refuge in these texts of kind of these pointing out of what felt like so intimate to me, and then realizing like this is just the nature of being, so much kind of confidence with that. Yeah. Anybody had a good Sangha experience? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's not easy. And in our modern context, it's kind of rare, right? We have Sanghas that are more casual or surface level, but the Sangha, spiritual friends, spiritual community, it makes a pretty big difference when we can sustain it. And, I've heard from Chandra that this is a pretty robust night and that you guys have that here, at least with the regularity and the showing up and the teachings. Yeah. So then that's our kind of, in some ways, first layer. But the ultimate or inner refuge is none other than our own mind. The ultimate or inner refuge is none other than our own mind. Through recognizing its essence, the luminous wakefulness of awareness that shines continuously behind the clouds of confusion, one is naturally protected from the very causes of suffering. Just so beautiful, right? That if we can find those glimmers of our inner radiances, of our goodness, and we can kind of feel a growing confidence in the goodness of our practice, the goodness of our being. Not like we're so great, but we have what every being has, which is that Buddha nature, that basic goodness. He says, preserving the continuum of awareness, we no longer fear the cognitive or emotional obscurations because they no longer affect us. The function of the external refuge is to lead progressively to the understanding and eventually realization of the inner refuge. It's like, I mean, my heart has so much longing for that to stabilize. I know the taste of that, right? Of feeling that confidence in this inner refuge. And then I can feel it get shaken out by anxiety, insecurity, not knowing. But that, like, when you come back and you keep coming back, it does start to feel, how does he say it? The luminous wakefulness of awareness that shines continuously behind the clouds of confusion. Yeah. And then there's you guys, two quotes. Does anyone have this book? Like every chapter is like 15, 20, 2 quotes. I really like, I try not to bug Matthew, but I kind of want to write him an email like, bro, like, is it because it's so good or because you don't care? Like, what's up with this refuge chapter? But this one is from the Dalai Lama, this current Dalai Lama, whose birthday it was just this month. Through study and reflection, we understand the origin of suffering and how it unfolds and is perpetuated. Then we learn how to reverse this process and we acquire the conviction that it's possible to be liberated from it. So through study and reflection, we understand the origin of suffering and how it unfolds and is perpetuated. Then we learn how to reverse this process and acquire the conviction that it's possible to be liberated from it. We also understand how important it is, if we want to break free, to have a correct view of the nature of things. That is to say, emptiness, the absence of independent existence. So his approach to refuge is all about seeing clearly. So this is where I want us to talk a little bit about our friends' fear and doubt. Who can relate to feelings of fear, anxiety, worry, insecurity, uncertainty? Yeah. It's a really useful emotion. It's functional. It helps protect us from the threat of harm. And it can, emotions, as we know from contemporary science, they're triggered in a 25th of a second. So there's an automatic appraisal. Right? When we are looking at the world, we do not see the world as it is, as would be the Buddhist ideal, to see reality as it is, free from projection, free from delusion, free from, any extra material, but we don't. We see the world through our appraisal. Like maybe the first time we walk into a new room, we kind of see it freshly. But this prediction making mind is always running these old scripts and stories, cognitive shortcuts, right? And our automatic appraisal of the world means that our emotions are triggered before we have time to think. So emotions operate outside of conscious awareness. They're just right, we're triggered. And so these fears that get in the way of a feeling of kind of seeing the world clearly, seeing that world through the lens of, truth, interdependence, emptiness. That fear contracts the world, promotes that self-cherishing, really makes everything kind of small and tight. And working with fear, we actually do really need to understand the source of fear. and the database of fear, like the underlying, because we think like, well, fear is because of what's happening out there. But that's only half of the truth. Fear is a lot about these internal scripts, these inherited, these learned stories about the world, right? So a common fear that some people have is not feeling good enough. Anybody? Right? Like, I'm not enough. I didn't do enough. I'm not good enough. And that fear is based not in necessarily what the world is showing us, but all these like past experiences in our family life, in the culture that we grow up in, you know, and how we're reflected back. And so when we meet something like, so funny, you know, like walking in this room, and I have taught in this room, and you know, da 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 da, whatever. I'm like, oh dang, Chandra students. Oof. Oh no, there are probably some serious people. I hope I'm good enough, right? Like, and I can see that fear arise, and I can be like, you're good. You're offering the best you have. But if you don't see it, then that fear, like I could get like really tight, and I could feel awkward, and I could like, you know, it has the power to shift and change your reality. Because when the fear takes over and you see through the lens of fear, you react to the world out of fear. And guess what? The world reacts to you out of, you know, so you're creating a dynamic. And so to cut through self-cherishing, like that sounds like a beautiful idea, but it actually means cutting through these like instants, these 25th of a second triggered emotions. And it's not that we can cut through before we get triggered. And we can't even like create an environment in which we're not triggered. Because if you're even in your own home with like all the things you want to eat and like all your favorite things and furry friends and like all the food that you like, even the incense you like, there's still thoughts. They'll rise in your mind. You'll be triggered. So like we can't actually prevent ourselves from being triggered, but we can start to learn how to work with the way we respond. And kind of, you know, Shantideva's maybe most famous quote, you guys probably already had it in this book, is you can't cover the world in leather or pleather, right? You can't cover the world so that it'll be easier to walk on, but you can cover your feet. And this idea that, you know, we can't like just make the world a place where we are not triggered difficult emotions, because look at this fucking world. It's full of suffering and senseless pain and all the things, social media, like all the triggering events. And so what we do is we like wrap this beautiful mind heart in bodhicitta and love and compassion so that we can meet it. And when we feel that arise, that emotion arise, our first response is, "Aw, that's cute. You're anxious. You're insecure. Okay." You know, so it takes so much awareness for us to start meeting these emotions like right there. But luckily, we get a lot of opportunities like throughout the day, right? A lot of opportunities to meet it, react, kind of like maybe we, you know, dissociate, maybe we like distract, maybe we deny and suppress, maybe we buy something on Etsy, like whatever, you know, start like noticing like how are we meeting this uncertainty, this fear, and is there a possibility to like wrap it in compassion? Like it makes sense you feel afraid. It's okay. Like whatever are the words that feel to you like that compassion. Because then, you know, what you're doing is you're exercising trust and faith in something that's bigger. And it's, oh man, I remember again on that retreat in February, I was like, do I have to fucking trust in the universe? I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I was like, I think I do. Damn. Like, you know, because it's so hard to kind of let be, right? You know, just let be ourselves, this mind, everything we didn't do right, everything we won't do right. Like, okay. You know, and then because the reaction to it, this anxiety of like, am I going to do it right? Am I going to do it right? Did I do it wrong? It keeps us so far away from our true nature, so far away. And that's why refuge is there. Like it's there so that we have a place to rest the heart, so that we have a place to feel like I'm good. I can be with this Dharma. I can practice with my breath. I can be in community. I can trust these teachings. And then I find my way to the luminous wakefulness of awareness that shines continuously behind the clouds of confusion. Like we start finding our way back over and over till it feels reliable. So fear has that like quick quality. And again, in fear, you have anxiety, worry, rumination, all the way to panic, right? I'm not saying don't feel emotional, like that's not possible, it's not safe, but like recognize how much possibility we have to respond in different ways and to kind of feel that ground of refuge and compassion. And then I'd say like, oh, damn, 3 more minutes, y'all. Let's get, good thing there's only one page, is doubt. I really don't like anybody doubt. Ooh, I take fear any day. Like doubt has just this other quality of like, it's confusion. Like we can't see clearly. And, it always makes me feel so much better that not only did Buddha have doubt like right before he was enlightened, then he like touched the earth and it was like, boom. But like Mara kept showing up even when he was a teacher. Like would like, there'd be like teaching like this and doubt Mara would just like come into the room and Buddha would say, I see you. And that was it. There wasn't like a big battle, there was just, I see you. And that clarity, bringing clarity to doubt, instead of trying to like rough up doubt on doubt's terms, like, no, I shouldn't feel that doubt, or I'm wrong, or you're wrong. Just, I see this doubt. It's like quicksand. You don't want to step into it because it like pulls you out. Like, just like, I see this doubt. And then again, trust, clarity's going to come. Like our intrinsic essence includes so much love, joy, and clarity. I know all of us wouldn't be here if you hadn't had the experience of just clarity, just coming through. So whatever it is, wherever the doubt is coming, I see you, doubt. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the luminous wakefulness and awareness that shines continuously behind the clouds of confusion. Yeah. It's very, very simple, but very hard working with doubt in that way. Let's see. Padmasambhava says the causes of wanting to take refuge is fear. If the cause is wanting, is the miseries of samsara, trusting the 3 jewels as the place of refuge, and moreover accepting the 3 jewels for protection and refuge. But you shouldn't just want to take refuge in order to be okay for yourself. That's like the wrong approach to refuge. Like we actually have to take refuge for all beings. And so even though refuge feels kind of like me in my little blanket fort, right? It's actually me in my blanket fort for the sake of all beings. And so with that, let's dedicate the merit of our practice. So if it feels comfortable, placing hands together at the heart. And taking a moment to come inward to the breath and the body. And reflecting on whatever is here in the heart and body and considering the energy of being here together, of this intention and effort. We offer up all this intention and effort with this outrageous hope. May it be of benefit for all beings. And may I be of benefit to all beings as long as space remains. May all beings everywhere feel freedom and ease, protected from doubt and fear. May all beings everywhere have true safety and harmony. May all beings everywhere be free. Thank you all for being here. It's really sweet to come feel this Sangha. And Chandra and I are doing a half day August 24th. We have a really good time together. I think you guys will love it. And I, just told you how horrible the bridge is, but if you ever want to do that, I teach every Wednesday night at the San Francisco Dharma Collective. But we're near BART, which is nice. So you take BART. And then I will say that this Thursday, there's a beautiful teacher by the name of Alejandro Chaul, and he's a senior student of Wangyal Rinpoche, if that means anything to you. And he teaches Sa Lung, which are these subtle body practices of breath. And we're really lucky to have him coming to the Dharma Collective. So you can also attend online, but if, kind of working with breath has felt like a calling, to you, the way he teaches the Tibetan yogas is just so grounded in lineage. It's not, taken out and extracted for self-optimization. It's like really, all the way through and like of great benefit. Yeah, I'll be teaching with him tomorrow there. We're actually talking about burnout. And then he's teaching, and I really encourage his teaching because he's only in town maybe once a year. And he emanates that trustworthiness of someone who's really living their practice, and then has this beautiful offering. So maybe see you there or somewhere else or here again. Thank you. Are there announcements you guys make?
No, that was it.
Okay, great. Sweet.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was like super impactful for me. My first time seeing your
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What was your name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Thanks. You look familiar, but I don't know if I. Anyway, this lifetime or another.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Here, see.
Eve. Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Where's Mandy? I know. Well, he's probably coming tomorrow on Thursday. So he's like, oh my God. Yeah, I know. I'm like, where's Okra today, though?
Just, I've only met Oprah once, but wow, what a dog.
Yeah. Frustration. Fair. It's like a good style. So sweet.
What time is the Thursday thing?
7 to 8:30. Yeah, online, in person, He's so phenomenal. I'm such a big fan.
Are your teachings online as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can see you.
Oh, that's wonderful, yeah.
So we actually did an online song that's pretty involved.
Okay, well, that's really lovely. I actually moved away 4 months ago,
Oh,
and this is my first time back.
okay, yeah,
And
it's great.
my partner was actually like,
Morning.
yeah, which was like both here and like sumo thing happening.
Oh, yeah, sure.
In Hawaii. So it's like everyone's in tsunami right now.
I heard some.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know how they possibly, but I feel like evacuating the island is part of
So we
there.
got this slow this week.
Yeah, he was like, before the class was like, no big deal, it's not a big deal. And I was like, everyone's panicking. I'm like, the word, the word came.
Yeah, it's so good.
And
But yeah.
but huge. So he was listening while he's driving.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah,
Then-
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because we can't see anyone here. Which I still, I can get the energy, but it's so different.
Yeah, it's nice still to see folks and then